Strike Studio presents.
There's new podcast and stuff. Hey everybody, guess who? We are back. We are here. We are now. Whatever that means, we're back for Larry's new wrestling podcast and stuff. My name is Larry Lawrence. The name's so nice, they named me twice. For those of you who are new to our show, welcome. For those of you that stuck with me for some whatever reason, thank you. And we're here to give you another episode of Larry's new wrestling podcast and stuff. My name, once again, is Larry Lawrence. We have to reiterate that because I want you to understand. Some people do want to forget me, but I am named same. First is like a shorter version, okay? Larry is the shorter version of Lawrence. So essentially, when my parents went through a whole name change, which we're not going to go into in detail because it's boring, because we call this show Larry's new wrestling podcast and stuff. See, this is where the stuff comes in, because we're talking about random stuff. I hope I'm not rambling, but I'm pretty good at it. So folks, we are here for another episode. I hope everyone out there in the world is being safe, healthy, wearing their masks. My mask is right here in the car. I'm going to show you right here, see? But I'm not wearing it. Why? Because I'm in the car by myself. So who the hell am I going to get sick? My car? Anyways, that's what we're doing here, folks. We're doing random comedy. If you even think that was funny, I apologize if you're offended for me not wearing the mask. But the whole point is that I really want to make sure, a genuine statement here, folks, that everyone out there who's suffering from COVID, been connected to it in some way, shape, or form, has a family member that maybe passed away, my condolences, genuine, being serious, that we really hope that you're out there and you're okay. So, folks, we really are going through a very difficult time in our world. It sucks because you want to be funny about this, but you can't really, because this is a serious issue that has devastated our world. COVID-19 is real. I tell people it's been upgraded to 27 because I can tell you right now, it seems like every time someone wants to reopen, it closes. Every time California or any state says they're about to reopen everything, they change their mind. And the reason why is we're going through holidays coming up, Christmas, Thanksgiving. People want to shop, get with family. I mean, the summer's here, but it's going to be Christmas before we even blink. The stores used to get ready now. What are the stores going to do? They're not open. So we have to buy all our merch online. Are you going to get your Christmas stuff on time, folks? You better start shopping now. Because I'm telling you, we're not going to be in the same holiday spirit maybe this year. More somber. We have an election this year. It's a lot to digest. 2020 vision. Make it a year of clarity and self-discovery. That's what I'm doing. I'm changing gears. We're going to be doing the show from a future location, undisclosed location. We're going to be changing things, folks. We're going to be doing different things in 2020 this year, too. It has been the best year of my life because I realized something. No matter what you want, no matter who you are, you can obtain these goals. You just have to change gears. Mine took stopping my alcohol intake. To each his own. My goal in 2020 is to stay focused. And that's what we're doing here, folks, on Larry's new wrestling podcast and stuff. Now, I'm going to tell you, folks, we're going to change gears once again. We're going to talk about baseball. I'm wearing my baseball jersey. My WrestleMania baseball jersey. And the reason why is because baseball's back. This is where the stuff comes in, folks. We're talking about baseball because baseball players have even been at WrestleMania, like Pete Rose. He's been at 3 WrestleManias. Pete Rose, who got banned from baseball for gambling. But you know what? That man was a staple, and it's even in the WWE Hall of Fame. Yes, I said it, Pete Rose. Okay, not from my generation baseball, but from baseball. And I can tell you, I have the utmost respect for his hitting record, everything he did. There's all these players that are up for contention for Baseball Hall of Fame that use steroids. Wrestling, of course, we know about that stigma. Folks, what we're doing here is we're giving you awareness that baseball's back for 60 days. And you can't spit. What? You can't go hack too? Like the Iron Sheik did back in the 80s? Iran number 1. Russia number 1. America hack 2. You can't spit in baseball, folks. You cannot spit in baseball. What does that mean? No sunflower seeds? So I guess sunflower seeds will be banned because that requires spitting. Chewing tobacco, I know, is banned because that requires spitting. My goodness, what have we done, COVID virus? You have changed our world, flipped it upside down. If you hear background noises because there's people screaming outside of our vehicle right now and they're causing me disturbances, but that's okay. We're still going to do our show regardless if the neighbors are going crazy. It's COVID-19. It's driving everyone nuts, folks. That's why we're doing it. We're going to be louder than them. It doesn't matter because I'm insulated in the vehicle. You probably don't even hear them. I just hear them because I'm here. Anyways, if that made sense, cool. If it didn't, I'm sorry. Let's keep moving on. Folks, as we progress and we move forward on Larry's new wrestling podcast and stuff, maybe you saw them walking behind the car. Oh, there they go. Yeah, get out of here. I know who you are too. Anyways, for those of you watching on YouTube, you saw it. For those on iTunes, it was funny. Folks, we're going to be doing this show week after week for you. YouTube, watch us. iTunes, listen to us, and realize something. You have a way to find us on Soundbean. I believe it says Soundbean. So I keep saying Twitch.tv, editor, producer. When are we going to be on Twitch.tv? We got to get going, folks. We got to keep moving this show to every platform. We're on Twitter. We're on Instagram. We're on Facebook. Larry's new wrestling podcast and stuff. Like our wrestling page. Like our Instagrams. All you Facebook friends of mine, like our wrestling page. You can't just be friends with me and not like my wrestling page. Please, a little decorum. And I tell you right now, we're going to continue to build this brand with Zoom stuff. Okay, we're going to keep doing whatever we can to improve the show, folks. But let's focus on this. We are bringing it to you right here today. Baseball is not going to be the same. Whatever we're going to check out in the next coming months, we're going to report it to you right here first, folks, on Larry's new wrestling podcast and stuff. Today's show, though, folks, we're going to get back on subject. We're going to get back on focus. Today's episode, we're talking about the Monday Night War. Now, this is WWF at the time versus WCW and the NWO, technically, but we're not going to jump ahead. We're going to start from the very first episode, episode 1 of the Monday Night War, which I believe is a 7-part series on the WWE Network. I'm a subscriber. You have the option of getting it for free, but you don't see as much. So, if you can afford it, and even if you're collecting unemployment, use $10 of it to get the network and get Netflix and watch other movies too. $20 out of your pocket, don't even need cable, and guess what? You can tune into Larry's new wrestling podcast, Netflix. You can watch every show out there that's available on Netflix and YouTube. And also, what did I say? The network. Yes, I had a glitch, folks. It happens. It must be my hair. I just got a haircut. Does it look good? Anyways, for those on YouTube, I hope you're enjoying on iTunes. I have a sexy haircut. Anyways, back to focus. And I'm single and sexy and nobody cares. Back to focus, ladies. Anyways, my focus is this. The goal for this documentary series, I love the documentary series, these are original. Done by the WWE. This one was back in, I believe, from 2014. So it's an older series. But I tell you, it's probably right when the actually network was debuting. Damn, has it been that long? It's around the time frame. Either way, it's a very well done series on the rise and the competition fall of WCW versus WWE, and even ECW will find its way in there. Now, I'm just saying, you have a lot to tune into for the next 7 shows because we're going to seriously document. We just got wrapped up with the Undertaker series. Once again, the Undertaker officially retired. There was a send-off on Friday Night SmackDown. I couldn't find it online because I missed the episode, but I saw a little bit of it. They did a beautiful tribute to the Undertaker on Friday Night SmackDown, and once again, the wrestlers came out, the current roster, and said, "Thank you, Taker." I hate that clap chant stuff, but that's our modern wrestling. Just like the product is so... That meant not so good. For those that were listening on iTunes, it sounded like something else, like it was in the, where, the restroom. But this was actually a show about WWE, AEW. We're talking about the old school. We're doing it all, folks, on Larry's show on Larry's new wrestling podcast and stuff. So back to focus. WCW was a Southern-based wrestling company. That's what they called it, WCW. But the NWA was a big deal Jim Crockett Promotions. So during this documentary series, we go to the original 80s decade. There is no other. The 80s wrestling. Hillbilly Jim. Hacksaw, I don't know why I said Hillbilly Jim first, but, don't go messing with a country boy. Hulk Hogan! That is the 1980s. If you think wrestling, it doesn't matter if you're not a fan or you are a fan, it's been well documented. You hear the name, Arn Anderson said it during this documentary. You hear the name Hulk Hogan, you think wrestling. And that's why when he made his way to WCW, it was a big deal. We're going to get back into that later. But back to focus. The reason why Hulk Hogan was huge in WCW is because it was established in the 1980s at AWA, Vern Gagne. They don't really even talk about that. He came from AWA to the WWF at the time because Vince McMahon said he could make Hulkamania a household name. That's what he told Hulk Hogan. Hogan believed him, and he moved to the WWF from the Minnesota-based AWA. Had he stayed there, we'd probably be calling it hold on, let me think about it. American Wrestling Association. We'd be calling it the AWE, American Wrestling Entertainment. I just came up with that. So it doesn't sound good as WWF, World Wrestling Federation, right? So anyways, because it rolls off the tongue. The World Wrestling Federation, and they're not pandas. I don't care. They're not pandas. World Wildlife Foundation. You had to, didn't you? Destroyed it. Even though Vince, during interviews, always claimed to be entertainment-based. That was his main focus. That's why he did the cartoon, 80s rock and wrestling, Hulk Hogan's rock and wrestling. Come on. All that was Vince McMahon's genius, his risk at WrestleMania in 1985 when he brought Cyndi Lauper. Girl, just want to have fun. I know that sucks, but you have to visually see it. Otherwise, you don't understand it. I got kind of the hair now that Cyndi Lauper had, kind of like that flavor hair, not Flavor Flav, like, yeah, boy, even though he was Public Enemy #1. That was back in the 80s, too, as well. Rap music, when that rap music got better. But in the 90s, it kind of went, eh. Anyways, we're going to focus, folks. We're not talking about the NWA. The other guys, see, keeping it G-rated in 2020, because then I'd be called that bad guy for saying the other word, the N-word. But that's what they call themselves, with attitude. Well, I'm just telling you right now, I have an attitude of gratitude. So how you like them apples, even though I'm allergic to them? That's a whole nother show, folks. But if you go vegan, my friend, my podcaster, producer will tell you, you're living the dream. Not like Dusty Rhodes, but you're living the American dream if you're vegan. Even though people don't understand what vegan means, folks. It means no meat, no cheese. But now you know because of Larry's new wrestling podcast. You're welcome. Where's Moppy? That's a whole nother story, folks. That's Saturn. But he's not on this episode until later. Because we're going to be talking about the Radicals in future episodes of WWE Network, The Monday Night War. Back to focus. Folks, what we're doing here is we're wanting to make sure you can keep up with me because I am stone cold sober. But one thing that I've learned is I talk fast. And I know I need to slow it down. But I'm doing it for you folks because I want you to keep up with me. So we're going to talk about the network series. Now I'm going too slow. We're going to talk about the network series called The Monday Night War, where Hogan, Piper, Orndorff, tag team, okay, Mr. Wonderful, Paul Orndorff, who's not very nice, by the way. If he's watching the show, okay, you were mean to me in the casinos in Vegas at Halloween Havoc, okay? Just saying. You wouldn't stop for a picture. But Mr. Wonderful, Roddy Piper, tag team with Cowboy Bob Orton. Randy Orton, you're very nice. You were the first person I promoted. We talked about that the last show. And folks, I'll tell you, Randy Orton, I wish him continued success because he's getting to the latter years. And I got to tell you, Edge and him had a great match at the, Backlash pay-per-view. They marketed the greatest wrestling match ever. It wasn't, but you know what? It was good. But we're going to tell you right now that Bob Orton, his dad, was the guy in the corner man, because he had the cast, which was his cast all the time he wore, because he wanted to make sure to use it in the ring, which he did at WrestleMania. But the whole point of this WrestleMania is it was a risk that Vince McMahon took with money, because if it didn't succeed, we probably wouldn't be talking to you right now. I wouldn't have this podcast because of Vince failed. But Ted Turner had the NWA purchase. And what he did was he put Crockett Promotions out of business by buying them out. And creating the NWA became WCW. And I'll tell you right now, Vince McMahon even had the WWF programming, Superstars, other shows that he produced. Saturday Night's Main Event was on NBC. And I tell you right now, mainstream television, late night, I couldn't always stay up awake to watch the show because I fall asleep. I just didn't have the stamina. But when Saturday Night Live was preempted, they put Saturday Night's Main Event for Vince McMahon, who had a working relationship with NBC. And then he also had a working relationship with USA Network. And USA Network also now is Monday Night Raw. So folks, this is something that is technical stuff because cable was in its infancy at that point in the 1980s. Cable television is what gave the WWF the mainstream attention that WCW, aka the NWA, was on TBS, Turner Broadcasting Systems. And Vince said, let me buy some action to getting my wrestling show promoted. So he did it. He promoted the WWF on Turner Broadcasting before, because he had all kinds of wrestling on there. Georgia Championship Wrestling. He had WWF bought some time. So somehow he got out of the contract with Vince because Turner and him had some weird disagreement. So Vince was like, F you, I'm gone. He ended up going to other networks and syndication, which allowed him to put his show all over America. And people, I found it on Channel 2, KTVU, Channel 2, every Saturday morning, right after Soul Train with Don Cornelius. Yes. I watched a little bit. I love that little dance they do, you know, and everyone's just standing on the sides, and then the person goes out in the middle, and he does his thing, like breakdancing. My editor knows all about breakdancing. Anyways, but that was the 1980s. That was what I watched before, basically, Superstars on Saturday morning. It was called Superstars of Wrestling, but eventually Vince took out the word wrestling because he wanted it to become more entertainment-based. See? I bet you didn't know that, folks, but now you do because you're watching the latest new wrestling podcast and stuff. And we're learning here together. If you're not a wrestling fan, folks, you're going to learn about wrestling through the Wrestling Encyclopedia. Yes, I said it. I have so much knowledge about wrestling, you're going to probably turn me off. But anyways, no, you're going to listen because you want to learn. And I'm going to tell you right now, folks, Ted Turner learned that he didn't want to work in relationship with Vince McMahon. And what he wanted was an opportunity to continue to work with the best wrestlers in professional wrestling. So he decided to buy out the contract from Jim Crockett Promotions. And he bought Ric Flair with it, which I learned today from Jim Cornette's show, which is a great show for me personally. I love it. And I'll tell you right now, there's been a lot of controversy in wrestling. But I'll tell you straight up, that what is controversial is what is soon to come in this episode, where we learn how Eric Bischoff, well, I'm jumping ahead, caused so much friction between WCW and WWF at the time. And I'm going to tell you, World Wrestling Entertainment really needed to step up their game because in the late 90s, it was the WCW dominance, that 84-week period that they were the number one Monday night show. And we're going to talk about that as we progress with this series. But in this documentary, we hear about how Ted Turner and Jim Herd is the main president. Now, Jim Herd was a Pizza Hut, basically president, from what I understand what Flair says in the documentary, that no one liked Jim Herd. He was the president of WCW in the early 90s. And even Bill Watts, he is the guy who implemented that if you throw them over the top rope, they get disqualified. That was such a stupid rule. Anyways, the whole point is that NWA was a Southern-based wrestling company, so they call it wrestling. Ted Turner calls Vince McMahon. He says, I'm getting in the wrestling business. And Vince says to him, you know what? I'm in the entertainment business. So in a sense, he didn't care that Turner had created a wrestling company calling it World Championship Wrestling, which was basically what was the name of the show. But now he decided to take the show name and create it as his company name. So it went from the National Wrestling Alliance, owned by Jim Crockett Productions, to WCW, owned by Ted Turner. Okay, so there you go. World Championship Wrestling. And it became the competitor to the WWF, the World Wrestling Federation. I know a lot of letters, folks. You just have to keep up. And I'm going to tell you right now, what's great is that World Wildlife Foundation, eventually in the early 2000s, bought them out. And they said, get the F out. So it became World Wrestling Entertainment, WWE. Are you still lost? Or are you still keeping up with me here? Because this is what we get on Larry's new wrestling podcast and stuff. We're going to tell you right now, folks, we're going to continue doing this documentary series. But as we progress in episode 1, we learn that this young, aspiring announcer from the AWA, he worked for Vern Gagne's AWA. By the way, that was the name of the promoter who basically didn't lock down Hulk Hogan, who went to Vince McMahon's WWF, who was using cartoons, merchandise, kind of a cartoony character gimmick thing versus the National Wrestling Alliance, which was more about their wrestling. So Ted Turner bought wrestlers and Vince had entertainers who could wrestle. But they had characters and gimmicks like Jake the Snake Roberts, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, who he worked for both companies. A lot of these guys worked eventually for both companies because if they didn't like what was going on for them in WWF, they'd jump over to WCW. And we're going to learn this. That becomes a very big deal during these Monday Night Wars because eventually what happens is Ted Turner realizes that he's doing okay. Even he hires this young aspiring who I met him once before, nights before. I found him randomly in Hollywood one time. Just pulled over. I said, oh my God, I thought that was Eric Bischoff. I pulled over and I actually took my headshot with a kitty cat. And I tell you right now, I wish I had it with me. It's a stupid headshot from when I first pursued my Hollywood career. And then I held a cat. Like, it was so pissed off that I just had to do it. My photographer told me, hold the cat. And it was pissed. And even my agent at Abram Arden said, no, we can't do it. I was represented by a very big commercial agency. And I'll tell you right now, I had a good success, but he didn't want the cat. Long story. Back to focus. Anyways, we're going to tell you right now, folks, that moment with Eric Bischoff, I tried to pitch him because I wanted to work for WCW in the late 90s, and that's when I found him. Wow. What an opportunity. Randomly driving down Wilshire Boulevard, I looked over, and there was Eric Bischoff. I recognized him sitting at a table, and I pulled my car over, and I walked over to where he was, and I literally sat myself at his table. And I've given Vince McMahon my business card. I've done some random crap, folks, and I don't know why. But I did it because I want to work. I do know why. I want to work in professional wrestling. And I'll tell you, I still do. And I do it now during this podcast because I'm working for myself. I'm my own boss. Ha! Anyways, my friends, we're going to be giving you this type of nonsense every week. Tune in. Tell your friends. We're on iTunes. We're on YouTube. We're at Larry Lawrence Podcast. Please like our pages. Subscribe. We're building our subscribership, folks. Please. I beg you to share this if you think it's funny. Share it with your family. Share it with your friends. Share it with your business contacts. Or don't share it at all. Just turn it off and watch Peppa the Pig. My nephews love that guy. Well, the younger one, not the older one. Anyways, the whole focus is this. Ted Turner decided to step up his game by hiring Eric Bischoff to become the new president of WCW. They fired Jim Hurt. They fired everyone else. I think it was only Bill Watts. But anyways, they said, we're going in a different direction. And guess what happens? Eric Bischoff becomes the executive producer, and he takes WCW to a whole nother level because one meeting changes that forever. When he sits across and he does his bad Ted Turner accent, goes, wow, tell me. That was Eric Bischoff doing Ted Turner, but it sucked. Anyways, but the point is, I'm not going to do it, but I just did it. Ted Turner says, what do you need to compete with Monday Night Raw, which debuted in 1993? Because Vince took his game to primetime. Since nobody was really interested in those cartoony characters again, the early 90s was like a downtime for wrestling. Even though Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels, all those guys were athletic. But Hogan, they were getting out of that era. And he went to do Thunder in Paradise. And he was on the set of his show at the Disney MGM Studios where Eric Bischoff decided to produce the show. And Bischoff realizes, Hogan's on the market. He's a free agent. So he takes Ric Flair. And he goes and propositions him and says, hey, you still got a little bit left in the tank. And Ric Flair convinces Hulk Hogan. Now, Ric Flair's the number one guy. Remember, Turner brought Flair. So Flair humbled himself to make WCW bigger than they could have ever imagined. And it did, folks. It became the biggest wrestling promotion in the history of wrestling in the late 90s. They beat the WWF in ratings. That's what this whole thing was about. Monday nights. Monday night, which show would be the better show that week? Brand Supremacy, folks. That is what Ted Turner wanted. He said it in an interview. He wanted to kick Vince McMahon's butt. He said it like that. I just wanted to kick Vince McMahon's butt. That's it. He didn't say ass. He said butt. And I think that was kind of because he wanted to be PG or G rated. But he had CNN. He had the Braves. Now he has wrestling. He could be number one in everything. Why not? He's Ted Turner. He married Jane Fonda, who was way too healthy for him. She's attractive. He was like, eh. Anyways, all I can tell you is that, yeah, that was my weird way of saying old and maybe decrepit, but rich beyond words. Billionaire. Get the healthy Jane Fonda. You know what I'm saying, folks? Why not? You can. I mean, look at my face. I got a face for radio. But if I had billions, I'd be the fucking Tom Cruise. I'm just saying. I'm his height. I worked on one of his movies. He's short. Ladies, if you didn't know, he's only 5'7". I'm 5'5". Give me a chance. Anyways, back to focus. What we're saying is that Vince McMahon wanted to compete with Ted Turner. What did I just say? Vince McMahon wanted to compete with Ted Turner? Hell no. Ted Turner wanted to destroy an established brand that had generations of McMahon attached to it. Generations. Vince McMahon is the fourth generation promoter. And you have this rich guy who loves wrestling. And he's trying to beat Vince McMahon in the ratings on a Monday night. No one in the history of professional wrestling would have believed it, but I, as a fan, experienced it. And I was there at mostly WCW. The most money I invested, if I were to look back on it, maybe was in WCW, because I like their more conservative way of doing things versus the G Generation X's and the vulgarity of using God's name in vain. Since I'm a very, very devout Catholic, I didn't like that Austin 3:16 thing. So I kind of leaned towards WCW. That was my personal choice. But now, do I have the utmost respect for Stone Cold? Do I have the utmost respect for wrestlers in general? Yes. And I realized they were doing it because it's business. It is a business, folks. So if you can't set aside some of your personal views, you can't really absorb what wrestling did in the 90s, because it was amazing. And there probably will never be a time like this ever again. I hate to say it. For all these new baby boomers and people that never experienced it because they weren't born yet, you have the network. That's all you can do, folks, is watch the WWE Network to see all this original content of the National Wrestling Alliance, of the WWEF back in the day, of ECW Hardcore, all of it. The 90s, my friends, was the best time for wrestling. Even the 80s was good, but the 90s was great. You can never touch that era ever again. I promise you, folks. And I'm saying it from the heart because I literally felt it and I was there. And I did things that a fan would be proud of. My family didn't like wrestling. My dad hated it. He says, "Why are you watching this?" with his accent. I said, "Dad, I like it. It's stupid. Fake." I hated that. But my grandfather loved it, so I decided to watch it because of him. God rest his soul. And I'll tell you right now, I'm doing a podcast, but God rest my dad's soul. You both helped me and inspired me to do this, so thank you. And for all those that believe that they want to do something, I guarantee you, if you really want to do it, you'll do it. Like we're doing this podcast for you. And I'm really appreciative of our viewership. And I'm really appreciative of what I'm doing here because it's giving me a platform to speak about COVID-19, about the controversy of writing and negativity, and now the positivity that we bring you here on Larry's new wrestling podcast. So back to focus. WCW versus WWF. Monday Night Wars. You have Vince McMahon realizing after the first Monday Nitro that Eric Bischoff debuted on September 4th, 1995, that he said, and they were preempted, Monday Night Raw was not on the air that night. So it was basically a one show, one channel. TNT, he said, "Eric Bischoff, I'll give you whatever money you need." He said, "Give me 2 hours on primetime." Done. So Vince McMahon had competition on Monday night for Monday Night Raw, which debuted in 1993. So they had a jump start. They had established themselves. And the Manhattan Center in 1993 was a hot spot. And a lot of wrestlers from primetime wrestling, basically, not the show, but primetime wrestling, performed on Monday nights. And they were given that audience that they gave themselves uncut, uncensored, uncooked. That was their slogan, Monday Night Raw. And it was only on USA. And I tell you right now, very much a big part of the Monday night history, but it was established first in 1993. And I'll tell you, in 1995, so the WWF had already had a jump start against Monday Nitro, which debuted about 2 years later, 2.5 years later. And I'll tell you, folks, it was history making. It was because WCW never held back. Eric Bischoff took it to Vince McMahon. And how did he do that? He took all the wrestlers. So they signed Hogan in 94. They do a big parade. So Vince was like, oh man, he said he was going to be loyal to me. He went. He understood. It was business. They gave him a huge contract and lured him back into wrestling. And then people followed. In the video of Bash at the Beach, when he wins the title, in the first match in WCW, Bash at the Beach 94, I remember watching it, Hogan beat Flair in a classic wrestling match, which outside interference, and Mr. T, right there, they don't even go into detail about that, but I'm telling you, that's what happens. They basically decided to take it to Vince McMahon by bringing WWF wrestlers to WCW. That was Hacksaw Jim Duggan, Bruce the Barber Beefcake, Jimmy Hart, managers. Folks, they were bringing him the Nasty Boys. They all were coming from WWF because they wanted a resurgence of career, and Turner and Bischoff were giving guaranteed contracts. Yes, guaranteed, meaning that's not what Vince McMahon does. He only gives you promises that I'll give you the best that I can, but not a guarantee. And that's what lured him. All these guys were getting a second chance to become brand new once again. Okay? So this is what WCW did. And they decided to give us the Monday Night Wars, folks. And I'll tell you right now, we're going to continue to bring you this, folks, every week. We're going to show you episode per episode that Monday nights will never be the same, from Alundra Blaze throwing the title in the trash to basically the Razor Ramon Diesel situation, which is about to happen on the next episode. Folks, the Monday Night Wars established with Lex Luger, who was about to be re-signed by WWF, who they repackaged him to be like the Hulk Hogan of WCW, okay? Or just give me the WWF. Lex Luger, who was called the Narcissist, all of a sudden does a tour on a bus all over the USA. He slammed Yokozuna, who was a 500-pound Japanese sumo wrestler, and they went that patriotic tip, and they were phasing out Macho Man, all these other older guys, and they were bringing the new generation. Even though Luger was a little bit older, he was never in WWF. He was mainly an NWA, WCW guy. And Bischoff, who didn't like him personally, decides to bring him away from Vince McMahon, and literally, people thought he was still signed to WWF, and he shows up on Monday Nitro in 1995. We're like, what? Luger? So Bischoff even sucked it up and brought him over there, folks. That is how crazy these Monday Night Wars were. I'm telling you, folks, this is what you get from episode 1. Okay, we're about to go into Billionaire Ted's War Room, where even WCW is so threatening that eventually, as McMahon sees that he's getting more wrestlers, Vince Russo is in one of those vignettes, because he was a writer for the WWF magazine, that he does these vignettes that basically make fun of Hogan and Macho Man, saying that they're over the hill, because eventually Randy Savage, who's tired of being a commentator, okay, on Monday Night Raw, he jumps ship and he goes to WCW because he had a conversation with Hogan, and Bischoff guarantees him money. So even Randy Savage, the Macho Man, comes over and brings the Slim Jim contract with him. Dude, it is crazy that they lured all these wrestlers from WWF. So Vince, only thing you can think, and if you acknowledge your competition, it was said in the documentary, if you lure people that are washed up and you start to make fun of them and you give them attention, that means you're scared. So Vince was like panicking. Oh my God, he's really a threat to my company. So we're going to see this, folks. This is going to develop every Monday night. Even one of the wrestlers, Brodus Clay is his name. Now he's a Fox political guy. Anyways, Brodus Clay was interviewed during this, and they throw his footage in there, and he said he had 2 TVs, one stacked on top of each other, watching both shows. I just used to record them both, and then eventually I watched more WCW. So I would just record. I had a stack of VHS tapes for Monday Nitro, and I'll tell you, I got rid of them. I shouldn't have. Originals, I had to make room for my move, and so I didn't want to lug them, so I got rid of them. Anyways, I got the network. That's the whole point. I can watch every Monday Nitro. I can watch every WWF Raw that transitioned to WWE Raw forever for $9.99 in its original release, the way it came out back in the 90s. So if you subscribe to $9.99, you can get rid of your VHS tapes unless you want to be a hoarder. But all I'm saying is that we're going to continue to watch these documentary series. I'm going to wrap it up right now. This is where we're going to end it, folks. We're doing well. We're doing well. We're doing well. I'm going to button up here because I want to show you how sexy I look in my jersey for those watching on YouTube. And I'll tell you right now, sometimes I put the wrong buttons though. So yeah, I think I did that again. We're going to rebutton. For those on iTunes, I'm just going to rebutton. Okay? All I'm saying is this. As we wrap up the show right now, I digress. I want you to know, folks, we're going through a very difficult time in our world. COVID-19, people have passed away. People have died from this disease, from this virus, whatever you want to call it. And we're bringing you this show week after week. I have no voice now. We're bringing this show week after week. I'm excited to do it for you, folks. As you can see, I even lose my voice. And I will go and speak from the diaphragm. And we're going to be able to do it for you, folks, week after week, because I love professional wrestling, a.k.a. sports entertainment, a.k.a. wrestling. Wrestling, for those that say it correctly, according to Vince McMahon. But if you're in the South, you say wrestling. Folks, we're going to let you go, because one thing I can promise you is you're going to love as we document this beautiful, I believe it's a 7-part series by the WWE Network documentary series. And we're going to talk about it and let you know that we are here for you. And we're going to be bringing you some quality entertainment week after week, month after month, and hopefully not year after year, because I want to be on a major network. Anyways, we're going to bring it to you, folks, on Larry's new wrestling podcast. As I forgot to do it in my last episode, but we're going to do it this episode. Our lives are whatever we make of it. Let's just go out there into the world today and do me a favor, my friends, family, business contacts, human beings. Our lives are whatever we make of it. Let's go out there into the world today and simply make it a great one. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time on Larry's new wrestling podcast and stuff. Okay, bye-bye now.